Hello everybody, this is Stefano from DK Crafts, and today in this video I want to show you how to create spaced out weaves. Simple trick that I didn't know for a long while, and then once I learned it I said, oh, that's gonna be useful. So I'm gonna pass that on to you, and that's going to be very useful to create spaced out weaves where the two wires are not close together. But they're very much parallel to each other, and it helps create a consistent kind of weaving pattern that can be used, for example, in this pendant. It can be used to create a bezel of sort for your stone, which is very sturdy and very useful. Basically, you will be using the top wire and the bottom wire as guidelines for the stone, and the pattern in between is merely going to be tying everything together at the right distance for the stone to be caught in between. But this is just one application. It can be used for other things. You can make your bail for your pendant, rather than being as tight as this, it could be done slightly larger using just two wires, or it can be added as a decorative element. So we'll move on straight away to the practical side of things. What we're going to use is again 18 gauge wire, 1mm wire for your base, and 26 gauge 0.4mm wire for your weaving. So as for pretty much every other thing I showed you so far, we are going to start off by wrapping our weaving wire around the first of the two base wires, and we are going to do that for about 3, 4, 5 repetitions, whatever you feel like. I normally just do 3 or 4, just to get the two wires anchored together. Okay, I'm going to show you two patterns on the same piece of wire, so you can get the idea, and pretty much these are the two patterns that I would suggest you use for this kind of project. Give me 1 second, I need to get something very important and very useful for this, and it's a simple bead. Now, this is a 0.6 a 6mm bead, which is one of those you can buy. Normally you can buy bracelets or strings of these, and this is your best friend when it comes to getting the two wires parallel together. So what you're gonna do is you're going to use the bead by placing it so in your wire, just beside where your weaving is, and at that point you're going to take your other wire, okay, and put it like so. Hold it as tight as you can with between your thumb and your index finger. Sorry, I missed the word there for a second. And now we can start weaving. So this is the same two weaving pattern I showed you in the last video. So it's going to be, now I'm going to hold the weaving wire as well so it doesn't turn. Okay, perfect. At this point, what you kind of want to do is spread out a little bit the ends, so it makes it easier for you to start. And you're going to wrap around the top wire. This is very important. If you want to create a spaced out weave, you always have to wrap around each of the two wires singularly, as to fix the connecting wire in place. Now from this point on, I'm going to be moving backwards, and I'm going to be passing by the bead and wrapping around once, and then I can move back up. I try to keep my bead as close as possible to the position where I am actually weaving. I did pull a little bit too tight, so I'm gonna be moving backwards a little bit. Not something that I would suggest, but sometimes it happens because I pulled too tight and the base wires were not perfectly parallel to each other. They were rather trying to kind of create a V shape. So I moved backwards and then wrap around the bottom one once, and then from this point onward try to keep the bead as close to the weaving pattern as possible, and you are going to keep repeating this process. So once around the bottom wire, coming back up underneath around the top wire, yet again, and again, and this is pretty much the way that you create a spaced out weave and a consistently spaced out weave, as you can see. Now this can be adapted to different kind. Sorry, the weaving wire is tangling up, so I'm going to get it out. Now if the bead comes off, that's not a big problem, you just put it back in, just find the hole on the bead, put it back in. Now we can change up this pattern a little bit. You can do 2 repetitions or more, 3, 4 and 5 for example, and then you always close it by wrapping around the top wire once and then move back down, and this will give you a spaced out weave. Fuller though, with more passages, and this same thing can be done again. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Try not to get the wires on top of each other. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so this is the basic idea. It's a very, very simple trick. Use the bead to create the spacing and make the spacing even. Now, this is not my favorite weave to use with this kind of method. My favorite weave for this kind of work would be the figure of 8. So I'm going to take these off for a second and wrap around a few times at the bottom so we can start fresh, and then I will put this. This is a different weave, so that's what I'm trying to show you now. So we'll put back the bead in, and going upwards we go in between the 2 wires, keep the tension as it is, wrap around the top wire once, and then come back down in between the 2 wires, come back up and wrap around twice in between the 2, and then up again, and then down again. Now the only thing you have to be careful when you're doing this kind of job and you want the wires to be as parallel as possible is that you try to keep the tension even. Now I did pull a little too hard while I was doing the 5 repetitions here, so the wire kind of kinked down a little bit, but that's not too bad of a problem because it can be adjusted as we go. Now this specific one is very good if you do, because you can get diagonal weaves. So like for example, we'll do 5 repetitions at the bottom, 3, 4 and 5. We are going to be placing back our bead so we create the spacing. Okay, and then coming up from the bottom we are going to do the 5 repetitions on the top, 2, 3, 4 and 5. At this point we are going to move back to the bottom and do 5 repetitions around the bottom wire. It can be tricky with the bead, so you can take it off for the bottom wire. 3, 4 and 5, and place the bead back. Now I don't really like to take the bead in and out every time because otherwise it takes longer, but that's fine. And then we move back up and do the 5 repetitions at the top. 3, 4 and 5. And as you can probably see, you get different effects depending on the number of repetitions that you do. Like for example, if rather than doing the 5 repetitions, now at this point I could be doing 10 repetitions on the top, come back down, do 10 repetitions, come back up, you get a much more diagonal kind of effect. And this is very, very useful again to create situations like this, where you can wrap the pieces together in a way that it creates a nice pattern, decorative but also functional in this case. Or it can be used for filling up gaps in pieces, like for example in this one here. You see how the spacing here between the 2 wires has been used to create the pattern to fill up a gap in the design. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a simple trick, very, very simple trick. Use a bead and keep the spacing even, and you're going to be able to create nice parallel designs without going crazy trying to keep the tension always the same, because up until the moment I learned about this, that was kind of a tricky thing to do. But with a simple bead, you can do it without any issues and without having to drive yourself insane trying to get it right every time. See, very consistent. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon with another one.